John chapter 1, beginning in verse 1. In the beginning was a Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. A couple of weekends ago, we decided to take our kids to the zoo. It was a Saturday, so we decided to take our kids to the zoo on a Saturday. On a Saturday that was really nice outside, so we took our kids to the zoo on a Saturday that was really nice outside on a holiday weekend. Yeah. So I feel like in a way we talked about it's probably going to be a little crowded, right? And I think we were trying to mentally prepare ourselves for that. Nothing can mentally prepare you for that. I'm just going to tell you that. If you find yourself in that situation, just know you think you're ready, you are not. So we pile the kids up, we're going to head to the zoo. And on this particularly crowded day, the one thing that my son was adamant that he wanted to see this time were the giraffes, or the daffs, as he calls them. So we're walking in, he says, 1C daffs. All right, buddy, we're going to make it happen. The problem with trying to see the giraffes, if you haven't been to the zoo lately, there's a lot of construction going on too. So not all of the paths go all of the way around, and so you kind of have to work your way through. And the giraffes are at the very back. Almost, like not as far back as the elephants, but close. And the thing about the getting to the giraffes is that the path that goes to the giraffes is now a one-way ticket. So you walk all the way back there, you walk all the way around to the giraffe thing, and then it's a dead end, and you have to turn around and walk all the way back out. So there was a part of me that was going, I do not want to get all the way back there. That is a long ways. And over, John kept saying, gonna see daffs? Yeah, buddy, we're going there, okay? So we're working our way back, and we're probably about halfway there, and we stop for a snack break, because that's what you have to do. And so we stop for a snack break, and we get out the fruit snacks, and Lauren says, oh, look, there are giraffes right there. I was like, we are not anywhere near the giraffes. What are we talking about? And so I see her, she leans down, she tells John, she says, look, right up there. And again, we're about halfway back there, but if we looked up right through the trees, there they were. You could see them off in the distance right there. And they were walking around, you could see them eating, and John was satisfied. And I was relieved because now we didn't have to walk all the way back there. But I thought to myself, that's amazing that we could see them all the way from here. They are 20 feet tall, so maybe I should have expected that, right? Imagine my surprise when I'm going through this idea for this sermon, and I'm thinking about different things, and I come across a list of animals with the best camouflage. And on that list is a giraffe. And my first response is, what website am I on that picks a giraffe as an animal with one of the best camouflages? What are we looking at here? It turns out that in the Oklahoma City Zoo, on a hill at the top, at the back with one or two trees, is not so much like a giraffe's natural habitat. And in that area, they might stick out like a sore thumb. In its natural place, however, you might find a giraffe next to something that looks like this. And I'm going, oh, I can kind of see that, right? That makes a little bit more sense. Now, hold on just a minute because we're going to play a game with this next one, and this game is Spot the Giraffe. This blew my mind. There is a giraffe in there. You see it now? But if we weren't talking about giraffes, and you weren't thinking about giraffes, and I threw that picture up there, you'd be going, what are we looking at here, Jared? What is happening? And that blew my mind that something that we think might be so conspicuous at times can look like that in its natural habitat. So my thought is, which is it? Are giraffes easy to see, or are giraffes hard to see? We're in the middle of a series here we're calling Word Study. which is a play on words on a Bible study technique that we use sometimes. We pick words like faith, hope, love, joy, and we study them. We look at them in Greek and we look at them in Hebrew, and we find all the instances that they're in Scripture, and we try to get a better understanding of what that word means. And so that's what we're going to do in John chapter 1. In John chapter 1, in the preface to his gospel, John will talk about the Word in the passage that we read a while ago. The Word that in the beginning was with God, and the Word that was God. And as we start reading through this introduction, we go, oh, wait, he's talking about Jesus. So in this word study, we're looking at John chapter 1, and we're asking ourselves, what can we learn about Jesus? What can we find out about Christ in the introduction to John's gospel? Well, so far we've learned things like Jesus is God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We also learn in kind of a mind bender that Jesus is apparently a pretty integral part of the creation story. Through him, all things were made. Nothing was made without him. Jesus is God. Jesus is a part of this creation story. And then last week we found out that Jesus has life. And not only does Jesus have life, but that life is the light of all mankind. Now hold in our minds those three big ideas we've learned so far. Jesus is God. Jesus has been present and was present in creation, and all things are made through him. And in him is life, and that life is the light of all mankind. And if we hold all of those things in together, the thing that we read next is kind of shocking. If we hold those ideas in mind, what John says next is kind of unfathomable. He was in the world, the one who was God, the one who the world is made through, the one who is life and light. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. What on earth is happening here? How is that possible? How is it possible that he would be here and we wouldn't see him? We wouldn't notice him. This story, it seems, goes all the way back to the beginning. Genesis chapter 3, we find Adam and Eve in the garden. This idyllic situation. Adam and Eve in the garden, plants everywhere, free reign, basically, with one caveat, one rule. Don't eat that tree. The rest of it, go for it. Enjoy. Right there, just don't eat that one. And things seem to be going pretty well until the serpent arrives, slithers up, well, maybe walks up, but that's a conversation for a different day. So the serpent arrives and then presents with this idea. What is the deal with this tree over here? Well, God said we're not supposed to eat from it. Why? Well, because we'll die. Serpent says, that's not why. That's not why God doesn't want you to eat from that tree. God doesn't want you to eat from that tree because if you eat that fruit, you become like him. And God really doesn't want that kind of competition. So if you eat from this fruit, you can be like God. And this is a temptation that Adam and Eve can't pass up. The temptation to be like God. The temptation to usurp and take that role. So they bite. They eat. And now all this fallout happens at the end of Genesis chapter 3. But the part that sticks out to me right there is that day in and day out, Adam and Eve are existing in this idyllic situation, and they're walking with the presence of God. They see the hand of God at work in the very world around them, and still they do not recognize God as God. Exodus chapter 32. The Israelites have been in slavery. They've been crying out to God for help. They've been crying out to God for deliverance, and God shows up in a huge way. 10 times, actually, the 10 plagues we call them. Again and again and again, God is proving to his people that he is God above. He is in control of the physical world around them. He can do whatever he wants to do, and he is going to deliver them. They escape. They flee from Pharaoh. Pharaoh decides, you know what, never mind, I want them back, and sends his army to go capture them, and now God's people are trapped in between the sea and Pharaoh's army, and what does God do? Oh, he just splits the sea and lets them walk through on dry ground. They escape miraculously. They've seen the hand of God at work time and time and time and time and time, 11, 12 times now in this story. They get to Mount Sinai, and God says to Moses, hey, let's go talk for a minute. We need to iron out what life is going to look like if I'm your God and you are my people. So let's go up on the mountain and let's have a chat. And while Moses and God are talking, the people say, well, what happened to Moses? I don't know. He went up on a mountain. Well, we need something to worship. We need a god. So all the people took off their earrings, and they brought them to Aaron. And he took what they handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. And then they said to the golden calf, "These are your gods, Israel. These are the gods that brought you out of Egypt." The Israelites have seen the physical hand of God at work in the world around them, and yet they don't recognize God as God. Are we catching a pattern here yet? Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, reveals the words of God in Isaiah 65. God says, "I revealed myself to those who did not ask for me. I was found by those who did not seek me. To a nation that did not call on my name, I said, 'Here am I, here am I.' All day long I have held out my hands to an obstinate people who walk in ways not good, pursuing their own imaginations, a people who continually provoke me to my very face, offering sacrifices in gardens and burning incense on altars of brick." God says, "I revealed myself. I said, 'Here am I.' I hold my hands out to my people, and yet they don't recognize me as God." The prophet Jeremiah has his own problem with God's people recognizing God. In Jeremiah chapter 7, we read, "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Go ahead. Add your burnt offerings to your other sacrifices and eat the meat yourselves. For when I brought your ancestors out of Egypt and I spoke to them, I did not just give them commands about burnt offerings and sacrifices, but I gave them this command: obey me, and I will be your God, and you will be my people. Walk in obedience to all I command you, that it may go well with you." But they did not listen or pay attention. Instead, they followed the stubborn inclinations of their evil hearts. They went backward and not forward. From the time your ancestors left Egypt until now, day after day, again and again, I sent you my servants, the prophets, but they did not listen to me. They did not pay attention. They were stiff-necked, and they did more evil than their ancestors. God was not the one hiding in the Garden of Eden, and yet Adam and Eve didn't recognize him. God did not hide himself in Egypt. In fact, he made himself overtly known, and yet the Israelites didn't see it. In Isaiah, God says that he revealed himself. He called out, "Here am I," and he held his hands out to his people, and they didn't see it. And in Jeremiah, God says that he offered to be their God, but his people did not pay attention. He came to that which was his own. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Fast forward a couple of chapters in the book of John. In John chapter 9, we read about an incredible miracle. We're introduced to a person who has been born blind. This is not there was a tragic accident that could be reversed. This is not, something crazy happened to him. There's a man who, from the moment he exited the womb, he has not been able to see. And in John chapter 9, Jesus is going to do one of those things that he becomes most famous for. When we read about these overarching summaries of who Jesus is, we say things like, "The lame walked and the blind see." So here Jesus is going to do something incredible in John chapter 9. And I want us to pay attention here. John chapter 9 is incredibly deep. It's incredibly layered. And so we're just going to read the whole thing. And I want you to pay attention as we go through, because Jesus is going to use this blind man as an example. And he's going to try to teach us about seeing and about not seeing, about who is blind and who actually sees. So listen in this story. Pay attention to who sees and who doesn't. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit on the ground, he made some mud with the saliva, and he put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam," and this word means sent. So the man went and washed, and he came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am that man." "How then were your eyes opened?" they asked. He replied, "The man they call Jesus made some mud and he put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked him. "I don't know," he said. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now, the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. "He put mud on my eyes," the man replied, "and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." The others said, "How can a sinner perform such signs?" So they were divided. Then they turned again to the blind man. "What have you to say about him? It was your eyes that he opened." The man replied, "He's a prophet." Still, they did not believe that he had been blind and received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that now he can see?" "We know he is our son," the parents answered, "and we know that he was born blind. But how he can see now, or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age, he will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That is why his parents said, "He is of age, go ask him." A second time they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God by telling the truth," they said. "We know that this man is a sinner." He replied, "Whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." And then they asked him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered, "I have told you already, and you didn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" And then they hurled insults at him, and they said, "You are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. But as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And they threw him out. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. And when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I might believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so the blind will see, and those who see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, "What? Are we blind too?" Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains." A man born blind, a man who has never seen the light of day, is healed. He was blind and now he sees. What an incredible turn of events. What an amazing miracle. What a time for celebration, right? Yes, kind of. For everybody except one group of people. That group of people, do you know who they are? The church people. They're the church people. This is a miraculous event for everyone in this story except the religious people. The religious people see what's happening. Well, they don't. But they think they see what's happening, and they are livid. They can't understand what's happening here. The one who is born blind, we hear again and again in the story, is the one who sees Jesus. Who is this man that I may worship him? Who is the Son of Man? And Jesus says, "It's me, and now you've seen him." The one who is blind is the one who actually sees, and the church people, the ones who think they see, are the ones who are missing the whole incredible, beautiful story. Why? Because Jesus broke a church rule. Now, hear me out. The Sabbath is really important. If you go back and you read the Old Testament law, Sabbath is very important. You could even read into the Ten Commandments, and you could find evidence that the Sabbath is the most important law in the Ten Commandments. So, the Pharisees are respectable for adhering to the Sabbath in such a way. The Old Testament says the Sabbath is really important. But what is the Sabbath important for? What is the point of the Sabbath? Why does God ask us to step away and rest? What are we doing here? And the Pharisees can't see Jesus because Jesus healed on the Sabbath, because he broke a church rule. And the Messiah, the Pharisees think, would never do that. The Messiah would never act like that. The Messiah would never speak like that. The Messiah would never look like that. Have we heard this before? The Messiah wouldn't talk to those people. The Messiah wouldn't eat with those people. The Messiah wouldn't do X. And Jesus is standing in front of them, and the acts of God are visible in the world around them, and yet they can't see it. They don't recognize it. Back to John chapter 1, beginning in verse 10. He was in the world. And though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. I titled this sermon, Christ Incognito. Most of you here would not see that. If you're watching online, you will see that as the title of this sermon. If you go back and watch it, you will see that as the title of this sermon. And that is an intentional misnomer, because Christ is not incognito. Jesus is not hiding. Jesus is not wearing camouflage. Jesus is not blending in with his surroundings. We don't have to squint to try to find him. Jesus was with God in the beginning. The world was created for him and through him and by him. Jesus is the light of the world. Make no mistake, Jesus is here in our world. Jesus is doing things. Jesus is moving things. Jesus is making things. And if we're not seeing him, maybe it's because we're not looking in the right places. Maybe it's because we're not looking for the right things. Maybe we're not looking for the right clues. Maybe it's because we're saying Jesus wouldn't do it like that. Jesus wouldn't do it with those people. Jesus wouldn't do it and say that. We have a rule against that, Jesus. Can't do that. Jesus is the light of the world. Jesus is life. And Jesus is living and present in the world around us. Will we see? Let's stand together. Robert will lead us in one more song. If I can help you on your faith journey this morning, come down forward and meet me as we sing together. Robert.